So we had some good. This was a very wonky week. This was a very wonky week for sure in the regards of, we saw some upsets. We actually saw a pretty good number of upsets. And, that's the thing about November. It's a long season, and teams that looked really good in October or even in September, do all those teams have the same amount of gas in the gas tank in November? Some teams do, and some teams just don't have it in them, right? So let's go ahead and dive into that top 25 because we do have a few changes this week. But a disclaimer first and foremost. First and foremost, what I want to talk about with these power ratings, they are just that. This is not how I would go about ranking the teams for the college football playoff, for example. This is not how I would rank these teams. If I was actually ranking these teams, it would be a lot different. It would be different than what I'm about to show you very shortly. Think these power ratings in this kind of line of thinking, right? These power ratings, they simply determine if they were playing on a neutral side field today, based on their body of work, who would be favored over whom? Who would be favored? So these are just power ratings. It's just who would be favored over whom. This is not how I would rank these teams, not how we do it. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into it, starting with in the top 25. We are going to start from the bottom, as Drake would always say, and work our way up from there. We're going to start with 25 through 21. One notable change, and this is why I want to talk about this disclaimer. I have Clemson ranked number 25 in the country in my power ratings. Do I believe that the College Football Playoff Committee should rank the Clemson Tigers? No. Do I believe that any AP voter in their right mind should put Clemson in their ballot for the top 25? No, I don't think they should receive a single top 25 vote. But I do want to say this. Clemson, realistically, I believe would be favored against the vast majority of teams in this country. I do see them from that lens as a top 25 team now, and I see them as that top 25 team because of that inspirational performance that they did give against Notre Dame. They ended up pulling the win out, won by 8 ultimately. It's a nice upset, able to possibly get the season, kind of salvage the season for Clemson. It's going to still be that quote-unquote down year, right? But Clemson could possibly maybe get some momentum towards the bottom half of this season and have something to look forward to as we go into 2024 as they try to rebound and regroup. Do I still believe that this Clemson team needs to make some wholesale changes? I think that does need to be a conversation about whether they need to use the transfer portal a little bit more often, embrace that transfer portal, because I think that could help their program in the long term to fill up holes in their roster that Clemson has. But really good win against Notre Dame. They were able to find a way to win it. So because they had that inspirational win against Notre Dame, that's why the power rating model does have them back in the top 25. And then not much other change over that. Got Iowa 24, Cowboys at 23, North Carolina and Texas A&M. They're both staying put. Texas A&M did lose last week. They were expected to lose by 3 points. They ended up losing exactly by 3 points, so I didn't change their rating. Now, going into the top 20 of these Any Given Saturday power ratings. Again, not a ton of change here at this point in the year. I do have Louisville, number 18, Ole Miss at 19, UCLA at 20, Oregon State is at number 17, and then Arizona. Arizona's going to creep their way up. Shout out to the Wildcats, by the way. Wildcats are bowl eligible, I believe, for the very first time since 2017. No one wants to play Arizona. They are one of the most dangerous free loss teams in the country right now. Arizona also has an outside shot of making the Pac-12 championship. They'll need a little bit of help, but certainly not completely out of the question. So shout out to the Arizona Wildcats in that regard. Now, we go into the top 15. Here's what top 15 is looking like right now. One big major muscle movement here, okay? I got Utah moving up 9 spots. I had them at number 22 in the latest power ratings because they were embarrassed the previous week. They rebound in a huge way. Should have been a semi-competitive game against Arizona State. Instead, the Utes blow out Arizona State. We're going to talk about their game specifically in a little bit. So I don't want to get too long here in this particular segment, but Utah, we'll say it like this. Utah definitely surprised me. I thought the Utah Utes showed me some things that I didn't expect to see. And Arizona State kind of regressed in a way that I didn't think was necessarily going to happen. So again, we're going to talk about this game very soon. So we're going to shelve that for a little bit. But Utah was the highest riser in this group this week that actually did make it into the top 25. Here they are at number 13 in the country. And we got Georgia at 12, Tennessee at number 11. We'll see those two play against each other very soon in the SEC East. Okay, so we got through the first 15 teams in this top 25. Now we're going to go ahead, jump into this top 10 real quick. Top 10 is looking roughly the same, right? There's not a ton of change here. I moved Notre Dame down a little bit because of that loss to Clemson. They were in our top 5 last week. We moved them down slightly. Alabama and LSU, okay? So Alabama and LSU in the power rating model, they actually now have the same power rating. LSU was ahead of Alabama last week, but because they had the exact same power rating and the fact that these two teams literally just played each other on the field, Alabama won in that game against LSU. We had to put Alabama over LSU. Slight bit of an override because usually if two teams have the same power rating, it's based off of who was ranked higher last week is how that ordering was determined, but a little bit of an override. We had to put Alabama over LSU there because of the fact that Alabama has essentially clinched the SEC East. All they need is Alabama. I think they just need to win one more game, or Ole Miss needs to drop, or if Ole Miss drops their game against Georgia this upcoming weekend, Alabama is going to be going into Atlanta, and it's this program that was written off back in September. There were some teams that had a chance to bring them down, but, here they are. Here in November, they still got a shot to go to the college football playoff because in that regard, they control their own destiny. They win out. They'll be competing for a national championship this year, whether you like it or not. Finally, we'll go into the top 5. We have a new team at the top. And it's not necessarily because Michigan or Ohio State, neither of those teams played bad per se. Michigan did roughly what they were supposed to do against Purdue. They didn't cover against Purdue, but it's still a convincing win. Ohio State did cover against Rutgers. Defense looked really good for the Ohio State Buckeyes, by the way, even though Greg Schiano tried some pretty crafty stuff there, right? But that doesn't change the fact that we do have a brand new number 1 team. And it's because of how dominant Oregon has looked since the last time we saw them play against Washington. Since that loss to Washington, Oregon has been on a mission. They have been dominant. I'm going to tell you right now, don't let Oregon into this college football playoff. If Oregon is let into this college football playoff, they're going to mess around, and a lot of teams are going to find out how good Oregon is. They are a dangerous team right now. They really are. They could really mess some things up in terms of maybe spoiling Washington if we do get a rematch of the Pac-12 championship. This Oregon team just feels like it has the pieces. You got the experienced quarterback in Bo Nix, who looks like a Heisman Trophy candidate. And then you also have a defense that's built in an SEC style And that has shown on the field. Oregon having one of the best defenses in the Pac-12. They're one of the most complete teams in the Pac-12. And that's why, even though, yes, Oregon did lose to Washington, if those two teams were to play on a neutral site field again, which is going to, the Pac-12 championship is going to be in Las Vegas this year, I would venture to say Oregon would be favored on that neutral site field. And if you don't believe that, then you might be a homer. I don't know what to tell you. Oregon's looked extremely good. Oregon, another one of those teams that continues to control their own destiny right now. They're number 6 right now in college football playoff rankings. I expect them to be there when they're revealed later tonight. We'll see if Oregon can maintain the focus, because if they lose a game, then everything I just said doesn't matter, right? They can't lose another game if they want to go to the playoff. But again, Oregon, a team, if they can find their way in, could find themselves with all the pieces necessarily to win a national championship. Is something to certainly think about moving forward.